ready for the word?
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to Genesis 13. One more time. We'll pick up reading in verse 14. Genesis 13, verse 14. And Yahweh said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, to thee will I give it, and to your seed forever. And I'll make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall your seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto you. Then Abram removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto Yahweh. Don't you love Torah?
Yes.
It's a lamp to our feet. It's a light to our path. To love Torah is to love truth, which means to reject Torah is to reject truth. Psalm 119:9 says that the way that a young man shall cleanse his ways is by heeding Torah. How do we keep ourselves from transgressions? The scripture says by hiding Torah in our heart. How do we have good success? By meditating in it day and night. Torah is settled in heaven, we're told. Well, if it's settled in heaven, then it's settled everywhere, isn't it? Yeshua said it would be easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for one jot or one tittle of the law of Torah to pass away. It abides forever. So in our possession is the book of instruction that was given to us by Yahweh himself through his servant Moses. That makes Torah a supernatural book containing supernatural instructions that can help us live supernatural lives. Without Torah, we wouldn't know how the earth and the universe were created. We'd be left to the imaginations of men who would try to convince us of a theory where the universe was created by some big bang. Without Torah, we wouldn't know how man was created. Without Torah, we wouldn't have an explanation about the giant skeletons that are scattered across the earth, both of mankind and of animals. Without Torah, we wouldn't know about the sacredness of the seventh day that serves as a sign between Yahweh and his people. Without Torah, we wouldn't know of the appointed times of Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And you and I rejoice in these truths revealed by Torah to us. Don't we?
Yes.
We rejoice in the Sabbath. We rejoice in the appointed times. We rejoice in the not knowing or having the knowledge of the Nephilim. But there's far more to Torah than just those revelations. And if we truly love Torah, then we have to embrace everything that it reveals, not just those big things that we consider to be big. When it revealed to us the Sabbath, we were astonished that the church had hid this from us for centuries, weren't you? I was. Astonished that it had been hidden from us. We cast aside the doctrines of men and we embraced what Torah showed us. When it revealed to us the Moedim, we were astonished that the church had replaced these celebrations with pagan festivities. We cast aside the festivals and traditions of men and embraced Yahweh's festivals. We must have the same tenacity and the same hunger and the same determination when we read texts like we just read in Genesis 13. Genesis 13 reveals to us an insight on how Yahweh works. It reveals to us how Yahweh works with men, and it reveals to us how men have to learn to cooperate with Yahweh. See, Yahweh has a specific way that he works. Torah reveals that to us. And Yahweh will not change the way he works in order to accommodate us. Instead, he reveals to us in Torah how he works, and he expects us to learn his ways and thereby learn how we can cooperate with him. Psalm 103 verse 7 says this: He made known his ways unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. So the children of Israel saw his acts, or they saw his mighty works. Yahweh knew his ways. And this knowledge of his ways is what caused those mighty acts to be able to take place. So let's look at a couple of verses that help us to see that there is a vast difference between having obedience to Yahweh's commands and understanding his ways. We can be obedient to Yahweh's commands and yet not understand his ways. Look in Deuteronomy 26. We want to do both, right? Not just one or the other. We want to do both. We want to be obedient to his commands and we want to understand his ways. Deuteronomy 26 says this. Look in verse 17. You have avouched, or we use the word declared. You have declared Yahweh this day to be your Elohim, and to walk in his ways, and to keep his statutes, and his commandments, and his judgments, and to hearken to his voice. Notice that when they declared Yahweh to be their Elohim, they declared that they would, first of all, walk in his ways. Second, keep his statutes. Third, keep his commandments and judgments. And fourth, hearken to his voice. There was not just the one thing of keeping his commandments, is what we oftentimes think of. If I'm going to make him my Elohim, then I have to obey his commandments. But there's far more to making Yahweh your Elohim than just keeping his commandments. Walk in his ways. Keep his statutes. His statutes are different than his commandments. And hearken to his voice. Moses understood that if Yahweh is our Elohim, then we're not just keeping commandments. We're also learning his ways so that we can walk in them. And learning his voice so that we can hearken to it. And to learn his statutes so that we can keep those too. So look at one more passage, just a couple of pages over there in Deuteronomy 30. We'll see a confirmation of this very thing. Deuteronomy 30 verse 16. In that I command you this day to love Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments, and his statutes, and his judgments, that you may live and multiply. And Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you in the land where you go to possess it. Those four things are again listed along with the commandment there to love Yahweh. So love him, walk in his ways, keep his commandments, keep his judgments, and keep his statutes. So we think oftentimes, again, repeating myself, but oftentimes we think, well, we make him our Elohim, we keep his commandments. But there's more expected of us than just keeping his commandments, all right? So here's the point. We should be just as determined to learn his ways and do them as we are to learn, keep, and do the commandments. We should be just as determined to learn his ways. Genesis 13 reveals to us his ways. It's easy to read past it and not see it, but that is to our detriment if we do that. Look at again at Genesis 13 and pay attention to the way that Yahweh works. We're not only reading about what he did, but we should be focusing on the way he's going to do it. Look again in verse 14. And Yahweh said to Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, westward. First of all, notice that Yahweh said something. We read in Deuteronomy 26, Deuteronomy 30, that we're to hearken to his voice. So Yahweh said something. What did he say? He said that if we're declaring Yahweh, I'm talking about Moses. Moses said in Deuteronomy 26 and Deuteronomy 30, if we're declaring Yahweh to be our Elohim, then we're to hearken to his voice. Now look at what Yahweh said to Abram. Lift up your eyes and look. Lift up your eyes and look. What is he asking him to look at? Read the next verse, verse 15. For all the land that you see, to thee will I give it, and to your seed forever. Let me ask you this. Is Yahweh asking Abram to look with his natural eye or his mind's eye? Or both?
Both.
Because there's no way that he could possibly physically see everything that Yahweh's going to give him. So Yahweh's asking him to do both. He's asking him to look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. He's asking him to look with his physical eyes, but he's asking him to see more than he can actually see with his physical eye. Yahweh's asking Abram to imagine all the land in that region becoming his. He's asking him to see on the inside all of it being made his and his descendants' land. There is nowhere that Abraham could have physically stood and saw all of it with his natural eye. Here we're learning about the ways of Yahweh. Yahweh's asking Abram to internalize this thing, to get it in his heart and in his mind, in his imagination, all of the land becoming his. Yahweh wants him to look with a natural eye, and he wants him to see what his natural eye cannot see. He wants him to see all of the land. This is the way Yahweh works, and he cannot do what he wants to do if we do not cooperate with him in this respect. He cannot do what he wants to do if we don't learn to cooperate with him in this particular way that he works. Yahweh cannot ever do in our lives what he wants to do until we cooperate. He couldn't even save us until we cooperated with him. For Yahweh so loved the world that he did what? Gave what? His only begotten Son. Did that end it? No. Did that fix everything? Yahweh so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever did what? Believed in him would not perish, but would have everlasting life. So Yahweh, wanting to save all of mankind, did what he does. But that didn't fix it. It requires cooperation in order for that to transpire in our life. Until we see what we cannot see with our physical eye, until we internalize and see and begin to believe that Yahweh actually gave his Son for us. Until we believe, then we cannot be saved or given, as it said there, eternal life. Until we cooperate, Yahweh couldn't deliver us. For Yahweh did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth is not condemned. Right. He that believeth not, he's condemned already. He was condemned before. And he still is condemned, and he will die condemned unless he does something, because Yahweh's already done all he could do. He gave his only begotten Son. So this is the way Yahweh works. We have to cooperate with him in order for him to accomplish his will in our life. It's his way. Everything he wants to do for us requires we cooperate with him in order that it come to pass. The act of cooperation, we call that faith. Because he's always asking us to see what we cannot see and act as if it's so. He's always asking us to see what cannot yet be seen and to act as if it's so. That's exactly what he did to Abram. Lift up your eyes and look north, south, east, and west. All the land that you see, I'll give it to you. All that you see, I'll give it to you. What about the land you can't see? You can't have it. But all the land that you see, I'll give it to you. So Abraham had to see it, and he had to see it becoming his in order for it to become his. How do we know if Abraham really saw it becoming his? This is very important when learning the ways of Yahweh. Part of the way Yahweh works requires that we internalize it, whether you call it faith, meditation, imagining it, whatever you want to call it, believing it. Abraham had to see it on the inside, but it's not enough to just get it on the inside. Enough to just on the inside believe it's going to come to pass. There has to be a corresponding action that goes with what we hear, what we see, and what we believe. Faith, if not works it has, dead it is. Right? So faith without works is dead. So Abram is being called upon to hear it, see it, believe it, but now there's got to be some corresponding action that goes with that in order to set this thing in motion. Yahweh expected Abraham to act on what he saw and what he believed. Verse 17, arise, walk. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I'll give it unto you. Then Abram removed his tent, came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto Yahweh. Arise, walk through the land, the length of it, the breadth of it, top to bottom, side to side. Walk through this land as if it's yours. So what Yahweh is requiring Abram to do is develop a mindset. Okay, I want you to look and see, internalize that I'm going to give it to you, and then walk through it like it belongs to you. It doesn't yet, but I'm promising you I'm going to give it to you. Walk through it as if it is already yours. The writer of Hebrews recognized that when Abraham did this, it was all done in faith. Go to Hebrews 11. Yahweh said, arise, walk. So Abraham picked up his tent and left. And here's what the writer of Hebrews says about that. Hebrews 11:8. By faith, Abram, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing where he went. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. So what this is telling us is the land wasn't his yet. He had to sojourn through it as if he was in a strange country, but he went there because it was promised to him. So he walked through it, pitching his tent in various places as if it were already his. He went through it, even though if you saw him, you would think he was just a sojourner. He went through it with the mindset, this is mine. Yahweh's given this to me. Where's the deed to it, Abraham? Don't have it yet. But Yahweh promised it to me, and I'm going to walk through it as if it belongs to me. Now back to Genesis 13. When we read this passage in Genesis 13, we should read the narrative and see that Yahweh has chosen Abraham and that he's establishing a covenant with him and with his seed, and that this covenant involves a particular region of land. But we should also read it and see the revelation given to us of how Yahweh works in the lives of men. His ways never changed. And the way he worked with Abraham is the way that he works with everybody. It's up to us to learn his ways and cooperate with him if we want to see him do great things in our own lives. You know, Yahweh showed us many years ago what faith is. We needed him to do that because many of us had come out of denominations that had corrupted faith. And they had made it solely about naming and claiming blessings, and we needed to be corrected. And so Yahweh revealed to us that not everything that people call faith is faith. And he showed us that there are 4 basic components to faith. And if something doesn't have all 4 of these components, no matter how much it might look like faith or sound like faith, it's not faith if it doesn't have these 4 basic components. Component number 1 is something Yahweh says. It's got to start there. Component number 2 is something we say. Component number 3 is something we do. And component number 4 is something Yahweh does. So in order for it to be real faith, it has to have all 4 of those components in it. Well, when you look at Genesis 13, you can see all 4 components. Yahweh said, look. Yahweh said, see. Yahweh said, arise. Yahweh said, walk. So there's something Yahweh said. And though there's no direct quote here from Abraham, we know that he also had to say. Something Yahweh says, something we say. Now, how do we know that Abraham had to say something? Well, he removed his tent and went. He couldn't remove his tent and go without telling somebody why he's removing his tent and going. Right? Why are you doing that? Well, because Yahweh said, right? But I'm going based on what I've heard from heaven. So Yahweh said, he said. Component number 3, Abraham looked, he saw, and he walked. So it's something we do. Abraham did something. And then component number 4 was Yahweh doing something. The power of Yahweh got released to accomplish what he had promised because Abraham said and Abraham did. Faith has to have all 4 components. You have the 2 primary components on each end. Something Yahweh says, something Yahweh does. Right? But those 2 components are not completed and cannot be completed and cannot come together until the 2 things in the center get taken care of. That's what we're calling the cooperation. Right? Those 2 components of us saying and us doing allow the first one and the fourth one to come together. Yahweh says, I'll give you the land. But in between his saying he's going to give it and the actual giving of it, there are 2 things he expects Abraham to do. He expects Abraham to say something and he expects Abraham to do something. And when Abraham says it and when Abraham does it, it allows what he's promised to come to pass. All right? This is the way of Yahweh. His works are made known to us through faith. So faith has 4 basic components. He says, we say, we do, he does. Now, you read any story in the Bible where Yahweh did great things, you're always going to find those 4 components. Every time. Think about the dividing of the Red Sea. I get tickled sometimes when I glance down at my notes that sometimes I type up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I spelled sea, S-E-E, and that is correct. The dividing of the Red Sea, S-E-A. Yahweh promised to divide it, did he not? Yes, he did. But he told Moses to do what? What did he tell Moses to do? Told him to lift up his rod and stretch it out over the sea. But he told him to do one thing before he told him to do that. Speak to the children of Israel and tell them to go forward. Tell them to move forward. So here we have the promise of Yahweh to do something. And down here, Yahweh has the power to do it. But in between, Yahweh is expecting Moses to say and Moses to do, the people to say and the people to do. And so when Moses told the people, go forward, Moses lifted up the rod and stretched forth his hand. It released the power of Yahweh. What if Moses hadn't said anything? What if the people hadn't moved? If they sat there and said, well, we'll get up and go when we see the sea split, the sea never would have split. Because Yahweh's ways are set. In order for his power to be released, they are released by and through faith. And faith has 4 basic components. Every time. We know well about the story of the wall of Jericho. Yahweh said, see, I have given you the city. See, I have given you the city. Joshua said and told the people. The people then did exactly what Yahweh told them to do. And then that released the power for Yahweh to get rid of the walls. Look at any story, any miracle, and you're always going to see 4 basic components. Now, I know that we know that already. But this morning, I feel compelled to go over it again because we need to take that lesson from our past and connect it to the revelation we have in the present. Yahweh in his mercy has taught us the importance of Yahweh. He taught us the importance of Torah. He has shown us that we have to walk in his commandments. And there are multitudes of blessings promised to those who keep the commandments. But we need to now connect the 2. Yes, on the one hand, we have to be obedient, and being obedient, there are blessings promised to us. But now we must connect that to the revelation of the past, which concerns faith. In order for Yahweh to bless us as He wants to bless us, we're going to have to cooperate with Him by and through faith. We cannot expect those blessings just to come arbitrarily. Are you following me? We have learned that there are blessings that come that are promised from obeying Yahweh. But we cannot expect those blessings just to show up arbitrarily. We're going to have to reach back into our past and take a lesson that Yahweh showed us years ago and bring it back up here and say, oh, this is how I access those blessings. Yahweh has said I'd be blessed. I need to also say I'm going to be blessed. I need to say and I need to do in order to release the power for that promise to come to pass in my life. In order for Yahweh to bless us as He wants to bless us, we're going to have to cooperate with Him in faith. All right? He's going to speak certain things to us, and that begins the process. If we don't know the rest of the process, then the promised thing withers on the vine and dies. His speaking to us, whether it's through His Word or in a still, quiet moment, His speaking to us starts the process. Okay? But the promise that He's given us withers until we complete the process. To fully be like our Messiah, we not only walk in Torah, we must also learn to walk in Yahweh's ways. Once He says it, we must say it. We must do what He said, then we can do what He said we could do, and we'll have what He said we would have. Obedience to Torah is not the only characteristic that Yeshua had that we have to master. Do you hear that? When we think of being like Yeshua, what do we think? Well, we'll be like Him and walk in Torah. But walking in Torah involves more than just being obedient to the commands. Yeshua knew the ways of Yahweh, and He could hear the voice of Yahweh. So if we're truly going to be like Yeshua, then shouldn't we also pursue walking in Yahweh's ways and not just obeying His commandments? To walk in His ways would teach us how to meet needs. It would teach us how to escape danger. It would teach us how to heal the sick. It would teach us how to see miraculous increase. Those are the things Yeshua did. And I don't think we can brag that we walk as He walked until we begin to walk as He walked.
Right.
And He kept the commandments, and He walked in Yahweh's ways. Abram had to learn how to see what could not be seen and agree with Yahweh that would come to pass in order for that to come to pass. We have to learn to do the same thing. The good things that Yahweh wants to release into our life can only be obtained by us through faith. There is no other way. We can demand it to be another way. We can be frustrated that there is no other way, but the fact remains there is no other way. Yahweh releases blessings to us, and they come to be in our lives by and through faith only. Go to Hebrews 11:1. Let's look at this. We've looked at it several times before, but it's been years. So let's look at it one more time as we look for a closing. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is. That's a definitive statement. Right? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So we can sit and speculate all we want about what faith is, but the Bible tells us specifically what faith is. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. Do a word study on this passage. The word substance there refers to a visible support. Something that is put under something else to support it. It's visible. Okay? Things hoped for is an earnest expectation. There has to be an earnest expectation. So faith is a visible support of an earnest expectation. If I said to Bill, I'm going to give you a pocket knife. Well, that might or might not create belief in him. See, that's where Yahweh is so awesome. Yahweh understands that when He promises us something, He needs to create in us an expectation. If I said to Bill, I'm going to give you a knife in the next 5 minutes, that helps, right? Create more of an expectation. To take it further, if I said, now Bill, if you stand up, I'll give you my knife. See? Now let's just say that I said that to Bill and you didn't hear me. But he did. And he stood up. Now you might say, why is he standing up? Wouldn't make any sense to you. Right? And Terry might say, why are you standing up? And then he would say, Steve said if I stood up, he'd give me his knife. Yeah. That's how faith works. See? Faith is a visible demonstration of an expectation. Right? And it goes on to say that it is the evidence of things not seen. The word translated evidence is proof. In a court of law, before you can convict anybody, there's got to be proof, undeniable proof that it's so, right? So it is the proof of things not seen, not yet visible. So we put it all together. Faith is a visible support or a visible demonstration of expectation. This visible, listen to what it's telling us, this visible demonstration of what we expect is the very thing that proves what we can't yet see. How does Bill know for sure that he's going to get that knife? Because he stood up. That visible demonstration proved that it had been promised to him and it would be given to him. Are you with me? That's what Hebrews 11 is trying to tell us. And it's demonstrated in the life of Abraham. That there is something unseen that Yahweh is promising to all of us, always.
Yes.
If we could see it and if we had it, we wouldn't need faith. We wouldn't need hope. We wouldn't need expectation. There's always things that we can't see He's promising to us. The only way to prove that it's there and to transfer it from the spirit realm into the natural realm is with a visible demonstration that we expect it. And until there's a visible demonstration that we expect it, it stays over in the spirit realm. It can't be transferred over. Before Yahweh could transfer that land over into Abraham's lineage and heritage, before He could do that, there had to be a visible demonstration that Abraham expected it to take place. Wow! That visible demonstration proves that Yahweh is working on our behalf. So faith is a visible demonstration that proves a work being done that is not yet seen. When Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw and then began his journey through the land, he did so because he expected that land to be his. His walking through the land was a visible support or a visible demonstration that he expected it. If there is no visible demonstration, there is no expectation. If there is an expectation, it will always be demonstrated visibly. When he walked through the land, he was proving that Yahweh was executing a work. You couldn't see it, he couldn't see it, but that didn't mean it wasn't being done. His walking through the land was proving Yahweh was at work. Just because it couldn't be seen didn't mean that Yahweh wasn't doing it. Yahweh said it, Abraham did something, therefore Yahweh did something. These are the ways that Yahweh works. If we focus only on keeping the Sabbath and the Moedim and never on learning the ways of Yahweh, we become more like the Pharisees than we do like Yeshua. If we focus on obeying and on walking in the ways of Yahweh, we're more fully following the example of Yeshua. If we truly love Torah, we do both. Now here's the conclusion of the matter. Yes, we must spend time remembering the Sabbath and keeping the feast. These things are loaded with benefits. But we also must spend time learning how to hear Yahweh's voice so that we can hearken to it. That requires dedicating time to being still and being quiet. We also must spend time learning how to access and release the blessings that are promised to us. If we're not seeing them, if we're not imagining them, if we're not internalizing them, if we're not speaking them, if we're not acting on them, then we're not cooperating with Yahweh in a way which will allow Him to bring them to pass. If we're not doing those things, we're actually preventing number 1 and number 4 from coming together. There's a gap between number 1, what He says, number 4, what He does, requiring us to say and to do. Okay? We know that faith has 4 basic components, so it's easy for us to see if we're walking in faith. Here's a simple test we can use on ourselves. We ask ourselves this question: am I aware of any promises He's made to me? Any word that He's spoken to me, whether it's through the written word or through a still small voice. Am I aware of any promise He's made? Because until He says something, nothing can happen. Until I become familiar with what He said, nothing can happen. So question number 2, am I saying what He is saying about me and about my life? Or are there other voices in my head and in my heart declaring my present and my future? Am I saying what He said about me and my future and my life? Number 3, am I doing? Am I looking and seeing and imagining that thing as if it were already true? And if I am, then is it being demonstrated in some action? What am I doing that demonstrates that I believe this promise to be coming true in my life? Only if we do the 2 things in the middle can Yahweh do the 4th thing, which is to bring it to pass, the thing He promised to do in the first place. So, we can dismiss this message, or we can recognize that it is Torah. It is not a word of faith message, it's a Torah message. Embrace it with the same zeal as we did the truth of Sabbath, and watch it change our life. All right, so we leave here knowing what? There's a particular way that Yahweh works in the life of everybody. He's not going to change. So if I want Him to work more in my life, I'm going to have to learn how to cooperate with Him. And that's going to require me hearing His voice more often, which may require me reading His word, not may, which will require me reading His word or listening to His word more often than I do. Yes. Right? If I'm going to hear Him speak something, I need to be able to hear Him. I've got to I got to put myself in His presence to hear what He's going to say. All right? And then as I hear it, it's not enough just to hear it and say, wow, that was good. I've then got to start saying it. Right? I'm not saying stand up and declare it to everybody. I'm just saying I got to start letting it come out of my mouth in some way. And then there's got to be some corresponding action that proves that I believe it to be so and that I expect it to come to pass. When we do that, things leave the spirit realm and show up in the physical realm. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. As his name is put upon you, so shall he bless you. Think about that. That's a good place to start.
Yes, sir.
That's a good place to start, is just start meditating on that blessing that we hear week after week after week. Because Yahweh said, say this. Say this. And if you'll put my name on them, I'll bless them. And look at all the blessings he's promised in that. What if we started repeating that and acting as if that were so? What would it release into our life?